slaves were happy, the owners were happy, and everyone lived happily ever after.
Read it again! Read it again!
Yes, please! No, it's almost time we learn how Christopher Columbus discovered this land.
Ooh, Mr. Parks?
Yes, Dale?
Why did slavery end?
Yeah. Well, that's a very good question. See, we realize that everyone deserves to be treated equally regardless of what they look like. But it worked so well.
What? We had free workers, servants.
Plus, they were happy learning new skills, so why don't we just bring it back? Look, kids, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but slavery was actually really fun and engaging, right? Of course, Mr. Superintendent. Now you kids go play outside. That's enough questions for one day.
Tag, you're it. Oh, you're it.
Sir, I was just about to...
Mr. Parks, I thought we were past this preference for history you seem to have.
We are. It's just these kids think slavery was some big party, and I just can't... Can't what? Teach the truth? No disrespect, Mr. Superintendent, but we both know this isn't the truth.
So you prefer we tell them that for over 240 years, this great nation was built on the backs of those who worked against their will?
Not exactly.
And that it didn't end with the abolishment of slavery. We kept going with segregation, convict leasing, restrictive covenants on housing, schools, riots, torturing, lynching. Is this what you prefer these kids hear?
No, sir.
Then stick to the script and save the bright ideas for your own damn kids.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here for the Sunday Sitdown. Royal Star will be joining us momentarily. He ran to grab his laptop. In the meantime, let me get you all updated on what's happened since the last time I updated you all on all the shenanigans going on in Fulton County. So now we're up to 3 of the co-conspirators that say that they acted upon Trump's direction. And once again, they're asking the federal court to dismiss their charges because they believe that they were acting in a federal capacity. Therefore, they're saying they didn't break the law. September 5th is the requested date for arraignments. Well, the week of September 5th. And they may have to appear in person or virtually because both of them are happening right now in Fulton County. And Eastman, per his attorney over the weekend, has said that he also may request a speedy trial. They are still hoping that the deadline won't be met by District Attorney Fonnie Willis and that an acquittal will just be blanketly given. We know that's not the case. I also need to update you all on the independent candidate that most everybody has forgotten about, Mr. I pop up every time there's a presidential campaign to sow discourse and try to split the black vote, Cornel West. He was recently interviewed on Fox News, yes, Fox News, and he admitted that he owes nearly $1 million in back taxes per a story that came out in the Daily Beast. It's actually substantially over $500,000. He said that he broke the 10th commandment financially because he's not concerned with making money, but also admitted that he's on a payment plan with the IRS. And he also went on to say that everyone should pay their fair share. He hinted that the Democrats were behind the Daily Beast story. And then he referred to Laura Ingraham as his sister. I don't know what's going on with Cornel West. Yeah, those are updates from Fulton County and Cornel West. And without further ado, we have the man of the hour. Is your camera on? Hold on. There we go. Okay. Can you hear me? Say hello to everyone.
Peace. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you because you're on my laptop and I hear playing now. Okay, good.
Okay, we're yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I
So
was like, what in the world's going on?
yeah, so much has happened over the weekend. And it's ironic that it's happened on the weekend of the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. Where to begin? Well, we know that
It's still like, go. Go ahead.
the Macedonians, the Trump crowd, are now trying to change the narrative since this last booking occurred in Fulton County, Georgia. They seem to be forgetting the history, the long history of Fulton County, because they're consistently looking at Fulton County as if it's just been black, black, blackety black. I'm guessing they forgot about Johnny Cash and how many visits he paid to that prison. I guess they're forgetting the voting history of Fulton County and Georgia as a whole. Because y'all do know that Georgia backed John F. Kennedy not because they were anti-racist, because they thought that their votes would give them a stronghold upon him. The same John F. Kennedy that was fearful of racists, that he would not attend the March on Washington and gave strict rules regarding the March on Washington and listened to the speech through an open window in the White House, but then had a record player on standby so that if things got too radical, they could increase the volume of the record player to drown it out to pretend that he wasn't listening.
Attention to, I hope no one disputes your facts. Because as soon as he saw Dr. King after the I Have a Dream speech, he literally said, I have a dream, as he put his hand in Dr. King's hand.
Mm-hmm.
It was also broadcast over TV. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the first time that anyone, well, if you were white, had seen an entire speech from Dr. King, 18 minutes. It's not the last 2-minute survey, it's 18 minutes. And the Gallup poll following the I Have a Dream speech still is a 67% response rate from our European American friends and family. And the question on their lips was, why is Dr. King so angry?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So everything that you said is borne out by the presidential, Records Act, the Freedom of Information Records Act that says all
Mm-hmm.
that, all of what you just said. The best thing that Mr. Kennedy did was have his brother Bobby as Attorney General, because his brother Bobby defended Dr. King way more than JFK did. In fact, at the original March on Washington, John Lewis, they had to hold him back because his speech was too little too late. He did not like the Kennedy administration in any way, shape, or form. That young John Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
They feel Randolph to talk to him. Randolph, who organized original March on Washington, and Ed Rustin, who was the chief. And he was queer and gay as gay can be. So that goes along with the tradition of our LGBT, the black showing up to do more than most. So if you have any quarrel, take it up with history, take it up with the ancestors, don't take it up with those on today.
Mm-hmm.
How are you down to the quality of education that is flowing out? Because I kind of like disagree with the idea that you started with, where the left or the
Whoop. Okay. Looks like his connection cut out. So we'll give him a few minutes to come back in. Also, I want people to keep in mind the March on Washington was a movement for poor people. It was the poor people's movement. So much of history is so skewed that so many people think that it was just specifically for us. There we go.
I don't know what's going on, man. I have no idea what's going on. I'm with this internet. Okay. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna see if I get closer to the house, if this is gonna work. Because this is ridiculous. All right, because this is ridiculous. So as I was saying, I don't agree with the idea that the left or the right can control the narrative. They don't have a narrative. They have a reaction to our existence. And that reaction is not dependent on us. Our existence is not up for debate. So they cope with the best way that they know how, but we don't have to manage or soothe their reactions to us. So what narrative? I'm not going to debate a narrative with these cats. The facts are the facts. If you can cope with them, stay within reality, you can cope with them, stay within reality. If not, okay, what you want us to do? That's really what it gets down to. So just like in Arkansas, where there were history teachers, European American history teachers, who said, we are not going to abide by this CRT ban. We are going to teach the truth, especially at Central High, of what happened here with the Little Rock Nine in 1957. We're not going to play this game. This is what's needed right now. Americans to act like Americans and not play to, oh, I disagree with you, or I have a different idea, or I have a different perspective. No, you don't. You're trying to cope and have your emotions actually mean something when they don't. They don't. Sort of like what Mr. Trump is attempting to do during this, I don't know what we call this string of indictments, because it's so unprecedented. I lack the vocabulary to talk about what it is that we're dealing with. I know that he can't go to Scotland to attend his golf tournament because they said, sir, you are under indictment. We don't want to deal with the international fallout from accepting you. And we don't want to deal with having to extradite you if you try and stay here. So you aren't coming. We're not going to let you in. Stay where you are. And he's on Truth Social because he tried to go to Twitter. It didn't work. He went to Truth Social in order to voice his opposition. I have no idea how his law is managing anything right now, because every time this man opens up his mouth, he jeopardizes now 4 different cases and the bail that he has on 4 different cases. Okay? So when it comes down to having to soothe or placate his emotions, we are now taken away from our quality of life in order to do so. Why? Why entertain this? Why? I did some research before coming on here, and I thought there were 7 states that had banned CRT. Did you know that there were 17 states that have banned CRT so far? Yep. Okay, I'm gonna name them for everybody who doesn't know. Okay, because I didn't know this. I just really did this research. Okay, it's Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Iowa, Kentucky, Mississippi, Montana, North Hampshire, really? North Hampshire, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, and Virginia. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely amazingly ridiculous to me, that there is that much fear flowing that they have to say, well, you know what? There are going to be large parts of the United States of America's history that we're not going to teach. And the teachers are going to go along with it out of fear that they're going to lose their income as well as their reputation within the community. That there's going to be something that physically happens to them in the land of the free and the home of the brave because they chose to tell the truth about the home of the free and the land of the brave.
And see, here's the thing. CRT started to slip into middle schools and high schools because of the hype around it. Because for so long, CRT was a legal class. You had to go to law school in order to take it. Teachers began to incorporate it because the students were asking, What is this CRT? Why are my parents upset about it? Why is it on TV? Why is it on social media? So the teachers, being good teachers, were like, hey, this is what it is. And the students were like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. I need people to realize the amount of their money, their tax dollars that are being wasted on these faux hearings and these fake passages of laws that are not necessary. Keep that same energy that so many people have for the fast food workers and the retail workers. Demand that of the people whose salaries you're legitimately paying for. You're legitimately paying for that. Because at this point, the only reason why CRT is creeping into non-collegiate classes is because you all let your kids know that it exists. Before this, they didn't know it existed. Your kids are curious about it. Your kids have questions about it. And it doesn't matter how many times you ban it. It doesn't matter how many times you pull books out of a library. These kids are walking around with phones in their hands, with tablets, with computers. They're going to find the information. It's a done deal. If you wanted to hide it from your kids, the easiest way to hide it from your kids is not discuss it.
Well, I don't know if they're trying to hide it from their children anymore. I think they're trying to, like you said, try and control the narrative. I think what they're attempting to do is trying to manage their emotions around this information. Because, like you said, social media has helped overcome the censorship like there's no tomorrow. There is no censorship happening. There's 1 out of 3 people who are connected to TikTok. Okay.
Mhm.
So that means that they're listening to you, they're listening to me. They're not listening to the news. They're cutting it off. They're not watching it. Okay. So they're listening to us and they're learning what their parents won't teach them. And then they're keeping their mouth shut in front of their parents, in front of their grandparents. So the grandparents and parents are walking around and they're like, why are you guys disagreeing with us? No, we're not physically disagreeing with you. We're not emotionally disagreeing with you. We're not mentally disagreeing with you. But when we go out into the community, we're talking to our Black, brown, indigenous, persons of color friends and family, and we are having real conversations and learning how to organize outside of your direct control. So now we're not supposed to be China. We're not supposed to be Russia. We're not supposed to be Cuba. We're not supposed to be some authoritarian society. But in order to mentally operate, all of these persons that state that they're progressive, state that they're not a threat, are doing everything within their power to not be framed as a domestic terrorist. That's what is going on. They don't want to be treated like an oppressor. Even though they can see that oppression is happening, please treat me as if I'm innocent and I'm not hurting anybody because I have the intellectual disagreement and the emotional intention that I'm not hurting somebody. So you got to recognize that. And if you don't recognize that, now you're engaged in reverse racism. You're not treating me by the 15 characteristics of white supremacy culture. So now how do I protect myself from you, Black person? It's amazing to me how, wait a minute, the people that are oppressed are a threat to you because they won't agree with you and your worldview of white supremacy.
Mhm.
That's some serious backwards thinking. And then the more that we don't choose to entertain this delusion, that's how we get to make progress. That's how we get to move forward. That's how we get to thrive. And that causes them even more distress. Okay, let it. That's where it gets down to right now. Let it. What happened yesterday in Jacksonville
And see,
was,
that's what I wanted to ask you about. Do you mind educating
go
the
ahead.
people on that? I'm gonna give you the solo platform and let you break it down for them. Okay.
All right. Far as we know, around 1 o'clock yesterday in Jacksonville, Florida, which is up north. Okay, it's not in the middle part. It's not down south. It's up north. A 21-year-old white man named Ryan Christopher Palmetto decided to travel out of his district, out of his home, to a historically Black neighborhood, specifically around Edward Waters University. When he got to Edward Waters University, he decided to begin preparing to engage in this very carefully planned out attack. Okay, so he put on his tactical vest. And when he was putting on his tactical vest, a security guard came forth and started to ask him questions. It was a black security guard. The black security guard ran him off the campus and then had to run him all out of the neighborhood. Okay, so he then found a Dollar General store. And he went into the Dollar General store, because again, he's near black people. He put on his tactical vest. He had his AR-15 and his handgun, Glock handgun. Both of them with swastikas written all over them. And then came out at 1:08 and started shooting at a black car with a black person in it. He ended up killing, that was the woman that he killed, Angela Michelle Carr. He then killed two black men that were inside of the store, Gerald Gallion and Arnault Joseph A.J. Legreri. I don't know how to say his last name. It looks French. He then barricaded himself inside of the Dollar General store because everybody else ran out. Okay. When the cops came and responded to this, there's a active shooter, they heard a single shot. That single shot was him using the Glock in order to kill himself. So I don't know if that means that justice has been done, because in our society, we say that justice is done through the death penalty. But if you commit suicide, I don't know if you're trying to escape accountability, but is justice done when you do it to yourself like that? And in our society, if we are the ones who are left having to pick up the pieces of that kind of level of violence, what do we do? Because his parents are acting brand new. His father said that after he had shot the first couple of people and barricaded himself, that he texted his father and told his father to take a screwdriver and open up his room and then go to his laptop. And what he had left was a suicide note and a manifesto. And then he had three manifestos, one to his parents to explain his behavior, one to the federal government, which kind of leads me to believe that this is associated with the Trump mugshot, and then one to the police, the local police. And in doing so, he articulated what the sheriff, T.K. Waters, is calling an ideology of hate, and specifically said that he wanted to shoot the N-words. Okay, so I'm not going to use the word because it's a dirty word, but that's in his Black August. But he said that's what he wanted to do. And now the sheriff is trying to minimize fears and panic among our European American friends and family to say that we don't need to investigate this anymore or make it more complicated than what it is, or trying to make sense out of the senseless, as if black people aren't being hunted in the United States of America, as if there aren't a coordinated effort coming from various parts of the European American communities. But he wants to minimize the panic and the emotions so that there aren't copycats. So I kind of get what he's saying and what he's doing on that front. At the same time, he's not contributing to any of the healing process that needs to occur, because we cannot break the taboo that's occurring within European American communities around not talking about race or themselves in reference to race, racism, and whiteness. We're not going to make any progress, because you can't even heal if you can't talk about the problem that you need to heal from. And right now, if black people decide to withdraw, we decide to separate, and we decide to protect ourselves, then our European American friends and family are going to feel fear like they've never felt before, because they're like, wait a minute, are all the black people treating me like an oppressor against my will when I don't feel like, I'm not consenting to being treated like an oppressor? Which then goes against the idea of individualism and right to comfort, which are one of the 15 characteristics of white supremacy culture. If you do not know what I'm talking about when I say the 15 characteristics of white supremacy culture, I want you to go to Dr. Tima Akun's website. She was influenced by Kenneth Jackson Jones, who was one of her colleagues, and they came up with this list in 1999. So we've been using that as a tool to try and help our European American friends and family identify the traits of white supremacy culture so that when they come up in their organizations, they can start looking at them and saying, okay, what are the alternatives? Because we have all these original systems, knowledge systems, that we're not utilizing because of colonialism. And I've had this conversation with a couple of groups of us, okay, that we find ourselves limited because of white racial violence, limited to the imagination of white supremacy. And we keep talking in terms that white supremacy understands. And as long as we keep talking in terms that white supremacy understands, we are going to keep having white supremacy outcomes in our society.
And also, Black people, this is not our fight.
Tell them.
We can be a support system to those that are already in our inner circle. But this is not our fight. This is not the time for us to pick up the torch and be at the forefront. To European Americans, this is your time. All of the unlearning that you say that you've done, all of the education that you say that you've embarked upon, this is when you apply it. This is your fight. You have had hundreds of years to learn from the rest of us on how to handle this. This is to show if you have been existing with your eyes wide shut or not.
I mean, it's as simple as that. As well as from what I keep observing, because I keep saying this too. I'm having a Black man's experience in the United States of America. I'm not having a European American experience. The racial caste system is literally this: white men, white women, Black men, and then completely invisible Native people. They may throw a model minority in between white women and Black women, but for the most part, that's it. That's the racial caste system that was crafted in 1675 in Jamestown and then spread throughout the remaining, as they were fashioned, 13 colonies. Okay? Now, colonies. Now, remember when Modern Warrior was using the term, hey, colonizer? And then they were sitting there, don't call me a colonizer. I'm like, you guys talk about the 13 colonies. How is he? He's not historically inaccurate. He's being extremely accurate using that term. You know, like what in the world? I agree with you that this isn't our fight because we can't manage the emotions of our oppressors anymore. It doesn't work. Doesn't work. So you have 204 million persons who need to go on their healing journey, and the Black people that they're oppressing, who are the trigger and the target, cannot do it for them or with them, and they quake in fear over that idea. Because truth be told, they're using us as their standard of human, meaning that if we accept them, they know they're being human, and they're not being racist like the people that they despise. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're correct. And that is the duality. That is the duality in how they see us, because they use their proximity to us to perpetuate their humanity. But then they use their distance from us to strip us of our humanity.
Ooh.
And that is the duality that we have to exist in. Not that we want to exist there. That's where we are placed.
Correct.
The reason why I say, people, this isn't your fight, just as much as we say, listen to us from our point of views, because you don't know what it's like to walk in our shoes. Because me as a Black woman, I can't speak on a Black man's experience, because how I have to walk is going to be a little different than how he walks. We cannot step into the shoes of European Americans and walk their walk and talk their talk and feel their feelings. We also, because of that, cannot be the corrector.
See, that's heavy. And it's so heavy, most of them don't want to pick it up, which is why we find so many people wanting to label themselves allies and accomplices, but not do any of the work that an ally or an accomplice is supposed to do. These are military terms. They are terms of confrontation. They are terms of conflict. But fear of open conflict is one of the 15 characteristics of white supremacy culture. So if you're not, how do you can fight with black people because of the racial caste system. We have to absorb, if you're a poor white, your pain, because the rich white people aren't going to absorb your pain. Was it Rich Man North of Richmond?
Mm-hmm.
That song where when he saw the guy who wrote the song, when he saw it on the debate stage for the Republican Party, he's like, you guys don't get the song's about you guys.
Yeah, but him, he's a fence straddler. He is a fence straddler. He knew what he was doing. And once again, he gave himself a duality. He used one verse to say, hey, I'm with the common man. And he used the second verse to say, I'm still a white man.
Yeah, but that's true.
Yes, it is true. And he knew that in that second verse, by using all of the talking points of conservatism, he knew he would land on there. And he knew he could come back and make a video for the good old boys that love him, the good old factory workers, the dudes that are just getting it out the mud, that he could have that duality. He can have the rich man's money. He could have the poor man's money. I'm not knocking his hustle. I'm not. Make your money how you want to make it, market how you want to market. Because I can tell you one thing for certain, two things for sure. Just like the United States markets itself as the greatest, European Americans, generally speaking, they market themselves as allies and accomplices. Because the one thing that I know, you cannot give yourself a title. A title has to be earned.
Yes, and Utah Phillips was a fence straddler by that standard. So was Pete Seeger. So was Woody Guthrie. Okay. What was it? James Baldwin.
I'm not saying he's the only one. There are quite a few. Because one person historically that I grapple with every time I see his name, because did he do great things? Yes. Did he get on my nerves historically? Also, yes. Is Walter White of the NAACP. If I had a time machine, would we tussle? Probably.
They tussled then. What are you talking about?
What about me and him? I know historically. I'm just like, bruh, you got to have splinters the way you rode that fence. Come on now.
Dude, and the fact that they split $1.5 million to put on the March on Washington, the Big Six. I mean, that's the message to the grassroots by Minister Malcolm X. They split. That's part of the reason why, as you said, Mr. Kennedy was listening to the speeches. Okay. That's part of the reason why Harry Belafonte was able to get all of Hollywood to come onto his private jet to fly to the March on Washington. It's part of the reason why you had what's his name? Answer my friend is blowing in the wind. Bob Dylan playing the March on Washington. And there are a lot of people that don't know that he did an entire set at the March on Washington. Another folk person. Now, he was good in that he stood up, just like Johnny Cash stood up. And there were times when he was told to shut up, and he shut up too. Okay, so it was a come by case by case basis that we see people step up. It's not going to be the consistent. I am taking all the bullets that we want them to take from other white people.
And it's the thing that a lot of people, there are times everyone gets to a point, whether it's somebody you know personally, somebody historically, that you look up to somebody, and your mind and your heart puts them on such a pedestal that you believe that they took on every bullet and they were just a shield for everybody. Now, the first time and the most pivotal time that this was shattered for me, I've said this before, let me say this again. The son of Reverend Abernathy was my 7th grade history teacher.
Ooh.
Ralph Abernathy Jr. So when he brought his father in, because he was like, you believe in this person, and I was like, I don't believe in any of them, because I'm just now getting to the meat and potatoes of who they actually are. You hear stories, you get a little bit of it when you're in school. But this is when I was able to explore for myself and go to the library. And I started discovering that people had journals. People still had newspaper clippings from those times. And I was reading them for myself. I wasn't like, oh, screw y'all. Y'all didn't do enough. No, I wasn't. I was just like, I'm not really going to form an opinion. There are some people that I used to hold in high regard that I'm like, I'm kind of middle of the road on you right now. And he said, okay, bet. I'm going to have you talk to my dad. And I'm like, for why? Have you met me? Am I really the one that you want to talk to your dad?
True.
And the things that he said and the things that he experienced, I was like, I get why you were not in very many pictures.
And I also get why you were in so many pictures.
Just like Jesse.
Mr. Jackson?
Mm-hmm.
Cicero. I'm gonna march through Cicero. And get everybody almost killed. Okay? Just like James Meredith and his march. So for those who don't know, we're jumping all around the 13 years of the civil rights movement. And if you're not familiar with those 13 years, then you're just going to need to get in contact with us and take a class. I have no problem laying them out, but you're going to have to take a class. There have been 3 persons in my studies that have lived up to all expectations and have never faltered. Okay? If we're going to stick with the civil rights movement, the very first person is Joanne Gibson Robinson. She was the architect of the Montgomery bus boycott, and whether time has not faltered in how courageous that Black woman was, how brilliant that Black woman was, and how that campaign needs to be studied and duplicated. Okay? Next
and
person.
I'm glad you started with her, because every time I bring her up, every single time, I get told that I'm wrong.
They're out of their mind. They're smoking some of the best weed on the planet. I don't know where they're getting that from. How? In fact, yesterday or today is the anniversary of Robert Great's having a cross burned on his lawn. He was the only white family that they spared from the boycott because he was secretary of the Montgomery Improvement Association and taking the exact same heat that the Black people were taking in Montgomery from other white people. He was considered a traitor. Okay. And that approval came from Joanne Gibson Robinson. It did not come from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Reverend Abernathy was running behind from the skirts and everything. So he wasn't anywhere around on that front. Okay. Come on, if we tell the truth of what happened during the Montgomery bus boycott, that boy got caught in so many houses and got ran out of so many houses, Reverend Abernathy, because he came to Anchorage. My father brought him up. I had dinner with Reverend Abernathy. I heard them stories. Daughter.
Well, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because he tells the same stories the same way. Like, you're just supposed to be like,
right. While he's sipping on his bourbon. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. So, no, I hear you. The next person that does not disappoint, Mother Mary McLeod Bethune. Okay. Let me give her a title. Okay. Does not disappoint. If you do not, if we talk about Florida, ran Florida. Okay. Bethune-Cookman College ran Florida. They got a statue of that woman outside of that campus, and you should kiss that toe every time you walk by. Period. Okay. Does not get studied enough, needs to be studied. Okay. As popular as Mr. Washington, Booker T. Washington was, Booker T. Washington was popular, Mother Bethune was effective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Last one, doesn't disappoint. One of two of the 8 that organized the NAACP, and one of 2 black people. The other black person was Dr. W.B. Du Bois. The other one was Ida B. Wells. You would not have anti-lynching organization, legislation, ideation whatsoever in the United States of America without Ida B. Wells, because she was the first journalist, period, to put together the idea that you started seeing the black people with business acumen disappearing from communities. And where were they going? They were being lynched by the white people. And so she was the one to sit there and put the racial motive behind lynching, which became exclusively black from 1886 forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you had white people, you had Hispanic people using, and I hate using these racial terms because that's all within the imagination of white supremacy. Okay, we're gonna have to practice Kujichagulia and start utilizing original ideation instead of this racial caste system, where we're gonna talk about ourselves as if we are Negroes, as if we are Hispanic. You know, I had one person just recently that tried to break down the word ethnicity by going to the Greek root, and I'm like, ain't that still European? We're still using their stuff. No, we were family, we were tribes, we were clans. Those are the terms that we used, and that was the organization that we used. We didn't use the racial caste system where we commodify ourselves as byproducts of the transatlantic slave trade, which is how we talk about ourselves. I'm multi-ethnic. If you're black and clarified as black, you're already 18 people meant together. So now you're a fiber optic. And now you're going to say you're this category of already being fiber optic. You're going to use the term ethnicity and then say, well, no, I'm mixed. You mixed what? My father is white. My mother is black. I'm mixed. So wait a minute. Let me see if I just get this straight. Just be logical real quick. Bear with me. Just bear with me, right? Does orange call itself half red and half yellow? Or does it call itself orange?
Calls itself orange.
Does green call itself half blue and half yellow? Or does it call itself green?
Green all day.
All right. You are a whole human being. I'm lost, dude. I am lost. I don't want to. You're not a can of paint. You're not a mixed breed dog. You're not, you know, blood quantum among our Native American friends and family, like they're a horse or a dog or everything. It's disgusting. Please stop with this blood quantum thing, this one drop rule, this Spanish gradient of how much white blood you have in you.
Mm-hmm.
See, we don't have to do this. We don't. And as soon as we break away and begin thinking like the original people that we are and connect ourselves back to our roots. So the main thing that whenever I call my Native American First Nations people cousins, here's the reason why I call them cousins. Ready? Because again, I'm a historian. You won't be able to refute this.
Mm-hmm.
They have this concept and they have ritual and everything of 7 directions. And if you don't know what the 7 directions are, please take a class with me. I can go to the first book out of Kemet, the teachings of Ptahhotep, and the pyramids are built off of the 7 directions.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And those who are sitting up there looking at it, it's like, wait a minute, what do you mean by the 7 directions? There are 4 directions. Right. You got them. North, south, east, west. Right. Those are the 4 cardinal directions. There are 3 others that the human being is supposed to use in order to orientate themselves. So you've been thinking this whole time we're talking about 7 is divine. Yeah, it is divine for a reason. The next divine number is 9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Sorry, 9 is the next divine number. Okay. And there's a reason for that is built into the human being. So we have systems of regulating growth, development, identity structure, psychology that is completely outside of white supremacy, that where we don't have to keep doing this to ourselves. Period. Period. And I think that's the great fear. First Nations can go back to their own culture and be good. Original people, black people, can go back to their own culture and be good. I can trace my lineage back to Senegal. Okay. Now, our European American friends and family, if you go back to Europe, the question becomes, are there enough persons alive who remember the original ways for that continent for you to actually connect your umbilical cord back to Mother Gaia? That becomes the question and the mystery that you're dealing with. Because the way you guys talk about the Romani, the way you guys talk about the quote unquote gypsies, which is a slur coming off of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The way you guys talk about them, they could be your saviors. You just disregard them so much. Same with the Inuit who are in Siberia and the Yucatan who are in Siberia. Okay. They're original people. But because you talk so bad about them, they could have the science of how to connect to Mother Nature, because any people that can survive in negative 45 below and you don't want to learn from them, there's something wrong with you. They know what they're doing. You don't. You don't. And again, if you don't know what I'm making reference to this late into this broadcast, please get in contact with me, email me, and let's start having some real conversations and stop playing as if the current system is the only and the very best system, as it destroys.
Mm-hmm. Because, and I'm glad you brought up Ida B. Wells, because the most important lesson I've taken, because I love everything that she's written. I love everything about Madam Wells. I really do. I really, really do. But her connection to educating, the fact that not only did she educate within the United States, but that she went to Britain to educate. She was not going to leave anybody in the darkness of ignorance, because she realized if you were ignorant to something, you were going to Groundhog Day that to the grave. And if we are perpetually stuck in a Groundhog Day, this equity, this unity, this peace, this ability to live as opposed to just survive, we will never achieve.
Correct.
Because hate grows in the garden of ignorance. Ignorance is nothing but a collection of weeds that wants to take over. And education allows us to prune and weed that garden and put in the seeds of actual growth, right, where we become the perennials of forward motion.
See, your metaphor was so deep, I know it went over people's heads, especially if they're not into gardening or they've never grown anything. Get everything out of the grocery store. They sincerely believe that the grocery store is the natural evolution of progress. That because you see technology, things are moving forward. It's like a mud hut is not high technology in their mind. And I'm like, but it's cool in the summertime and warm in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And it's renewable. It's sustainable. It doesn't hurt the environment. How is it primitive? Because you don't, it's not made out of steel. It's not made out of oil. It's not made out of exploitation. So then that means it's not, so exploitation is progress? Now we're back to
people need to go back and relearn the story of the Three Little Pigs.
Oh, no.
All of these mass manufactured homes that, they rely on technology so much for. Have you noticed that when Mother Nature just blows, they fall down?
See, back to what you were saying about ignorance, because you have wisdom all around you, but if you do not know how to apply it to improve your life, then you will always be working from a deficit and constantly saying to yourself, why isn't this working? Because it's not designed to work. What you're using isn't designed to produce the outcomes that you are saying that you have the intention of producing. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, I would greatly appreciate those who are listening to your broadcast to engage in experimentation with truth. It isn't just good enough to regurgitate it, test it out. We were saying earlier during a TikTok live that when we talk about FBI crime statistics, we're talking about that inside of a racial caste system. All of these are the result of public policy that is meant to create those statistics. Okay? So we have a choice of how we use those statistics. We can change public policy and then see if the statistics change. And as we change public policy, the statistics are supposed to shift towards what we want or away from what we want. Okay? But as long as we keep acting as if the statistics are naturally occurring and not the result of public policy, then we're going to keep having this, you're just trying to change the narrative. No, we're not trying to change the narrative. I'm looking at the test and saying it's not valid nor reliable. What's valid and reliable? You need to take a class so that we can cure your ignorance so that you know what it is that we're testing for and the conditions that we're testing the thing under. Otherwise, we're constantly going to be confused and dealing with the ignorance because we're constantly looking at it like brand new. Like, why is this happening? What do you mean, why is it happening? It was set up. That history will tell you the origin stories of why everything that's going on in our society is going on. Now, wisdom is going to help you be able to change it because you won't be feeling impotent. Just like Ida B. Wells didn't feel impotent, just like Mother McLeod didn't feel, McLeod Bethune didn't feel impotent, just like Joe President, because she was president of the Women's Political Council, President Gibson Robinson didn't feel impotent. Okay? Because impotency means that you don't know who you are. Because if you knew who you were, you would treat yourself differently and you would treat other people differently. Because when you're connected to Gaia, when you know that you are a byproduct of this planet and that this planet is alive, and because this planet is alive, you're alive, that you're part of the biosphere, then you will treat the biosphere as an extension of self, not separate from self. You will treat women, if you're in a masculine body, as an extension of self, not separate from self to be exploited. You will see children as not something that you get a crack an egg on and prank and abuse, but as the future present. They carry life forward. They're supposed to think differently than us, act differently than us, be different than us. And you're not supposed to abuse the child while the child is in your care because you're abusing yourself. That whole trend of cracking the egg on the child's head. Like, who comes up with this stuff? Is this coming out of a think tank?
Yeah, when I saw that, and people were like, "Are you going to address it?" And I was like, every time I sat down to try to address it, venom was coming out of my mouth, and I'm like, venom isn't going to teach anybody anything. So this is one I need to just be quiet on, because I'm a firm believer that if I cannot come to you minus venom, then this isn't the subject I need to speak on.
That I do hear. All right. So with the last few minutes that we have left.
Actually, I want to give you the last few minutes.
No. Let's stay this on. Let's stay this on. We're gonna just finish out this like Kanara.
I want you to tell people how to find you.
How to find me? Okay, we can do it. We can do it on that front. Come on.
Go. I'm about to give you the stage.
So when it comes down to getting in contact with Royal Star Allah, aka Kakai Nosakere, you can email me at royalstar, ROYALSTAR907 @gmail.com. I have a new book out for your benefit, How to Build a Racial Trauma Center. I have a teachable. I've got a homeschooling course that I'm about to drop on Black history. The very first book is December 3rd, 1860, The Tensions of the Moment, and it is the last speech that Frederick Douglass delivers before the start of the Second American Civil War that occurred between 1861 and 1865. And I'm going to use that to start the homeschooling course. I'm going to follow that up with a book breaking down David Walker's Appeal, which was 1829 when it was first published, and then he's murdered in 1830, to talk about how Black people framed enslavement and then actively fought against enslavement practices and push up against the narrative coming out of Florida and those 17 states that have banned CRT. I have a TikTok, Royal Star Mastery, which is private, and then Royal Star New World, which is public. Though email is going to be the best way to get in contact with me. I'm also on Facebook. I do plan to contribute to Taz's blog every month, and then keep coming on to this podcast, because we're going to need to have some conversations about how to organize. And it isn't effective to do that inside of 3 minutes, 15 seconds, a minute. Social media doesn't really work on that front. But you can ask questions beforehand. We'll have a conversation. I'm down to do a Montgomery bus boycott breakdown where we spend an entire hour, and it's going to take that entire hour to go over the 381 days and what happened over those 13 months that made it work and made it effective. And we've got plenty of material between now and the November 5th, 2024 presidential election to cover. Don't question that. I just hope that you have the emotional stamina and patience in order to listen, because otherwise, what's the point of wisdom being dispensed?
Very true. And there are links in the description of this video also to be able to get in contact with him. And his latest blog contribution to the Camp Taz blog is linked below as well, as always.
Yes.
I'm the queen of linking everything together.
You're quite all right. Quite all right. Thank you. Asante Sana. Yes.
As always, thank you for joining us here on the Sunday Sit-Down. Like I said, we only sit down with Royal Star, okay?
Y'all do too much.
And as always, to everyone watching, I know a lot of y'all were in my comments over on TikTok. That gentleman, he said he needs a week before he can sit down with me. So Mr. Bullet Frog Enterprises will be here next Thursday to sit down and tell me about how I don't know history. That'll be fun.
That's going to be hilarious. Eat him up. Eat him up.
And because remember, I don't know history regarding Trump. And keep in mind, this week is preliminary hearing week. So he's giving me a whole week of preliminary hearings and me that reads every indictment, every briefing, everything. So that'll be fun. But tomorrow we will be going over the Judge Chutkan verdict
Yep.
and whether or not Meadows and the other two will be able to move their cases to federal court. We will be going over all of that tomorrow, as well as the play-by-play, because Sidney Powell has some new motions out, and Eastman's attorney is set to file a briefing in the morning. So, of course, once that comes out, I will take a look at it as I always do, and I will break it down for you all tomorrow. And don't forget, there are 2 additional blog posts this week on the Camp Taz blog, just because stuff has happened. And as always, in all the blogs, there are additional links. And the new book club will begin the 2nd week of September. So if you are wanting to sign up, all the links are there. You can email me at asktaz77@gmail.com. It's also in the link tree, and we'll get you on there. And keep in mind, this month's book, I will tell you all tomorrow. I got so many books.
I hear you. I hear you.
I can't think of the name of the book. Yeah, I've got like 7 books right now that I'm going through for reference material. So my apologies. But as always, each one teach one, each one reach one. I will see y'all later.
Peace.